Yeah. Hello, everyone. My name is Tyagarajan Narendran, and we have the pleasure of interviewing Mr. Sarosh Zaiwalla today. He needs no introduction, of course, and though born in Bombay, he was the first non-European to have established a solicitor's firm in London's prestigious One Square Mile financial district. And I would not like to, go into the introductions because Sir needs no introduction, of course. So I'd straight away like to, ask Sir a few questions, and I hope you all enjoy this interview. Hello, Sir, and thanks for joining us.
First of all, let me say I'm honored to be invited. Yes. I like to remain ordinary. Of course, people have asked me that when I said it, everybody is ordinary, and the most important is not to have ego.
Of course, sir. Of course, sir.
You want?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. So, sir, you have, in your previous interview stated that being bored of studying chartered accountancy sort of propelled you into law as a profession. Other than that, what else, propelled you into the profession, sir, to take this up as a career?
Natalie, to be very honest, it's the first time this question is being asked to me in any interview. I've always wanted to join politics in India, and it was a different kind of politics in India. And I don't know whether you know, but I formed the first student union in Bombay. Started with the government law college.
Yes,
and the first time when the college went on a strike was HR college, and I was the one who was behind it. And I was not given in those days. A form was required to appear in your exams, which was not given, and there were lots of complications. And when I get into government law, it was much better, much more democratic. And there was a students' union, which was a sort of a non-entity students' union. So we got to really elect the students' union. And that's what I wanted to do. And so that also got me into law.
Okay.
Because I wanted to join politics. My aim, believe it or not, when I was young, was to be the Prime Minister of India. And believe it or not, in the government law, there were three parties. All of us wanted to be the Prime Minister of India. One was Marazban Patrawala, who went back. He came to become a barrister in England. He went back and he contested. He became a legislative assembly member and became a minister in Maharashtra. And poor chap, he stood against Murli Devra in a parliamentary constituency. It was a very stressful contest, and he passed away. Okay. And the second was Firoz Talia Khan, whose father was a minister, Homi Talia Khan, but he also had an accident and he passed away. So then I had gone to London, and I decided to stay back. And I have no regret staying back, because the democracy and in India at that time were very different. There was a rule of law prevailing, complete rule of law prevailing. Everything was very fair. I don't know about now because I don't live in India, but from what I hear on the television, NDTV and Ashtak, it is not the same now.
That's true, sir. That's true. So my second question to you is, you were born a month after India became independent and India came into existence as a country. And you left the country in 1975 when the state of internal emergency was, imposed in the country, right? As someone who was very politically active and politically aware, did you by any chance miss being around when these two events sort of happened?
Well, first of all, I had no choice because God decided to give me birth after independence.
But
I'm very proud of the fact, and I always say that I'm born free. And I was born out in India after independence. As far as the emergency in 71, the emergency was, when was it? It was in
1975, sir. June 1975.
75. I was already in London that time, so I was a student that time. So I don't think it made much of a difference to me. I followed it, of course, what was going on.
Of course, sir.
I did not participate in anything. Yeah.
All right, sir. So when you went to London with all this youth and freshness in you, did you take along the character of a country that had grown up with you, so to say, or did you go as a new man altogether?
No, of course, and I will always remain an Indian. So that was the country of my. That's the country of my birth. That was not a country. That is the country of my birth.
Of course.
And part of me, my heart will always remain Indian. That doesn't mean that I do not accept Britain also in my heart. And I am one of those who now believe in the principle of one world and one mankind. And what matters is the color of the heart and not the color of the skin, religion, or flag.
Of course.
I do believe that will come, where there is one world, there's complete equality of men and women. And what matters is merits and the color of your heart.
Of course, very well said. So this is rather a personal question, since you've been active in student politics in GLC and all that. What was your first media appearance? When did your name figure in a newspaper for the first time?
Honestly, I was quite thrilled. I was very young. I was a student. And I think it appeared 3 or 4 times. And I think it appeared in the Free Press Bulletin, which was an evening newspaper in those days in Bombay, or the evening news. And it also appeared in Janmabhoomi, or Gujarati newspaper. And they sort of, one of them alleged that I was a sort of socialist Marxist, which I was not, because I believe in God, so I cannot be a communist. But I was very socialistic in those young days, because to bring about equality in an economic equality in India. We all are when you're young, and I thought it was very unfair. So that's the first time, 3 times, I think 3 distinct times it appears, and I remember the quite feeling, my name is in the newspaper.
And what was your family's reaction to you being called a socialist Marxist?
My family's reaction, my mother was saying, don't get involved into politics. I don't know, I'm just remembering now, but my father was very independent and he would not interfere. And as Parsis, we are very objective and independent. We don't have any family view as such.
That's true. Yeah, that's very true, sir.
I say mad things, but we say independently.
Very well said, sir. And so you went to London in your late 20s, sir? Is that correct?
I went to in the late 20s. I went in 75.
Yes, sir.
I first went in 72.
All right.
And then 75, I joined the studies. Then I had to do my training contract for 2 years. And in 82, I started my firm.
All right. That is etched. I mean, your firm is going to celebrate 40th anniversary. Yeah. Next November, I suppose.
Possibly, God willing. I don't know.
So what was your first experience in London, or if I could call it so, a culture shock in England when you first landed?
My first experience, when I landed on, I think, 18th December, when I went for a permanent kind of stay, January 75. It was quite dark because the sun sets by 4 o'clock or 4:10 or something like that. And I was taking a room at the Indian YMCA. So it was a very, very Indian sort of thing. And I found that people were all very serious, they were all students or workers, and hardly anyone had time to talk. They had we would go for breakfast and we'd go for work, and they were so conscientious that they had to do well. And so for my first 2 weeks were quite miserable, except for the Indian food, which I got very cheap at the Indian YMCA, which you had to stand in the queue and buy it, but it was very, very cheap thali. And then about 2 weeks later, I was very fortunate that I got admission into the International Students' House, which is a very prestigious students' house, to the Foreign Office manages it. And I got that because in government law, I was a students' union leader, and T.K. Tope was the principal, who I fought with and argued with me, but we respected each other. And he had become vice chancellor for Bombay University. So before I left, I went to see him, and I said, I would like to get into International Students' House. Somebody had told me, Marasman Patawala had told me, it was very prestigious, you can't. So I just told him, he said, give me your name, details, who to. And he wrote to Sir Hugh Springer, the Secretary General of Commonwealth University.
Yes.
And before I left, he had sent me Sir Hugh Springer's letter. So I went about 2 weeks later to the International Students' House and said, oh, we are waiting for you. So I got into the International Students' House. It's the best thing happened to me because there were from 70 countries, there were students, international students, and it was run by Foreign Office, the Foreign Ministry, and it was subsidized. And there were tremendous education program on Britain. The ministers would come often to ask questions and answers and all the thing. So that's the best experience I had. And that sort of gave me a complete different change of thinking. that's also a matter of luck. And I believe everything happens for a reason.
Of course, sir. Very well said, sir. And what was your first experience in terms of how courts were perceived in England versus how they were perceived in India at that point in time? Because you had practiced for a short while in India before you left for...
I had not practiced, but I had worked with a firm called a Grant & Company.
All right, sir. All right. Yeah.
I had not practiced ever on my own in India.
Okay. Okay.
But I'd seen how it is. My father was a solicitor. My brothers are lawyers. So of course, I know about it. I found that the courts in England could not understand the Indian system, and there was a lot of different thing altogether. They were not racist, but it was every Indian case virtually failed, probably because of misunderstanding. And there were just 3 or 4 Indian lawyers practicing. And there were, I would think, about 3 QCs, but none of them had a good practice. And they were doing crime and things like that. So it was completely different. Now, the Indian courts were, of course, I knew were following the Indian customs. But the way the system works in India and England are different. India was the British colonial system working. And we must recognize that Britain ruled India with a population of 425 million, with just 4,500 white civil servants. 4,500 white civil servants ruled 425 million people. And I think it's brilliant that they did that, and we must learn from it. And therefore, they had to keep the pomp and the importance of the people around, to keep the people at a distance, to control them. And even the Maharaja states they were not governors, but an agent of the crown. And he was the big boss behind the scene. So unfortunately, when Britain left, the Indians who succeeded them became the Brown Sahibs, keeping people at a different ego. And the immediate distinction I found that in England, the lawyers and the judges were very humble, ordinary. They would travel by bus. They would talk to you in a first name term. If you meet on the road, if you say hello, they would stop and chat with you. Your Chief Justice would chat with me and they would know me. But that in India, it didn't happen that way because they were all the Maharaja type thing. So that was the most important distinction which I found.
True, so having qualified your law from India, do you think there is a need to decolonize Indian judiciary for this very purpose that you just mentioned? Because
yes, we need to decolonize, but in a good way. The most important thing is the integrity of judges. Today, I can say with confidence, an absolute confidence, that British judges, at least at the High Court level where I practice, in the Supreme Court and the House of Lords, the Supreme Court level, is that as far as integrity is concerned, there's not even 1% doubt. There is no influence by the government, no influence by friendship or anything whatsoever. Now, the most important thing which we need to Indianize the judiciary to accept the need for integrity in the judges.
So where do you think the culture of integrity comes from in England, and what do you think is lacking in terms of integrity in India, sir?
Well, I have not practiced in India, so I cannot really comment on Indian integrity, but I can only see from the hearsay evidence of what I watch NDTV off and on. I watch Ashtak because I'm an Indian, so I'm quite interested in what goes on politics, also behind my mind, although I'm not in politics. And what I hear about corruption is very bad. Now, just give you an example. 2 years ago, before the lockdown, a mafia-like person from Bombay, whom I was told is very powerful, I was introduced to him once in London. He called me up and said, "Sir, I want to come and see you." And I thought he must be having a client work or something. So I said, "It's important. I said, can we talk on the phone?" He said, "No, I want to see you." He came. And you know what he told me? And this is the honest truth. He says, "Sir, you must be having a lot of big cases in Supreme Court, Indian Supreme Court and in Bombay High Court. And I can fix all those cases.
Oh my God.
Give you the judgment." This is the honest truth. He told me that. I won't give you the name. And I was shocked. And he openly told me that I can manage to fix it. Now, I hope it is not true. I sincerely hope it is not true, and I have no evidence it is true. But I had to politely say no. And I said, that is true, because we don't have cases in the Supreme Court and the High Court. I don't practice, and people come to me for that. I said, no, I don't have the experience of handling, because when you practice in a court, you must have the feel of the judge. You have to have the feel of the court, how the court thinks, which I can't do that in India.
Of course, yeah. I get what you're saying, sir.
But that is something which is very worrying, if it is true. Now in England, for example, just now we are expecting judgment against Bank of England, which is a claim of $2 billion, 31 tons of gold. When we are suing the Bank of England for Central Bank of Venezuela, who had deposited 31 tons of gold in the custody of Bank of England. They want it back. The governor of Bank of England said, I'm not giving it back because my Prime Minister and President Trump does not like your President Maduro because he was not properly elected. And we took it in the court, and we are waiting to see what happens. And it went, within 1 year, we had a High Court hearing. We lost at the High Court hearing. In the Court of Appeal, we won 3-0. Now we are before the Supreme Court. The judgment is expected end of this week. Similarly, when we acted for Bank Malad, which is the biggest ever claim challenging the British government on the listing of Bank Malad, Iran's biggest private bank, for sanction. And it went up to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court said that the British government had acted unlawfully and irrationally. And they had the courage to say that. And that, I would like to see that standard in India too. The judges are fearless. And there are, of course, very good judges, I heard. I'm sure people like Rohinton Nariman and other judges are also very honest. But when you even get one complaint that a particular judge is corrupt, that sort of spoils the whole scene.
Of course, sir. Mr.
The judges, the honest judges must make sure to, if they find that there is any bench judge, then bring him out in the open.
True,
and bring the fear of God into anybody who tries to be corrupt. That's the way to do it.
That's
the change must come from within. The change must not come from outside. Changes are not made by the rule, but by within.
Yes, very well put it.
And for example, in England, the most important thing is the honesty. The judges must trust the lawyers.
Yes.
And we have a duty not to the client. The first duty is not to the client, but the first duty is to the court, to see that they are a fair judge. So if a client tells me something which is not honest, I cannot say it. I had a case 2 days ago where my son, who was a barrister, appeared on my firm's instructions. And I told him that, can we say this? He said, Dad, we can't do that because that's not honest and I'll be breaching my duty to the court. Now that's how the system works in England, and that is what must work everywhere.
That's very well put, sir. So I just wanted to ask you a question on how media represents judiciary in India versus how media represents judiciary in England. Do you think the fact that England has had an organized judiciary for centuries now makes a difference in media sort of trying to represent it in a more dignified way?
What you mean is how media projects judiciary.
Sorry, that's probably, yeah.
I think that's not correct. The media is the same in India and here, but the judges have to maintain the strength to keep the independence. Media does criticize judiciary. For example, there are cases of rapes and things like that, where a person is not convicted and things like that. And the media has a right to say, but not while the trial is going on. But they have a right to say that the judges got it wrong. But of course, there is an appeal. And there is a free media, but not to abuse the judiciary.
Of course.
Because freedom of expression is always there to say that I do not agree with the Supreme Court judgment. I do not agree with the Court of Appeal judgment. It's a wrong judgment. And there's no restrictions of that.
That's very well put, sir.
But you can't seek to influence the judge by the media.
Yeah, of course. And where do you think Indian media's reportage lacks? Since you said you follow NDTV and Aaj Tak quite regularly, when compared to English media, sir, in terms of reporting the courts, where do you think the Indian media should probably improve? Since we are speaking about media glare here on judiciary,
Indian media should teach the public to respect the judiciary. So they have a right to criticize, but not to right to abuse the judiciary. Encourage fair criticism if the media has got it wrong, but not to go overboard and abuse the judiciary, and not to sort of try and influence the judiciary by pressurizing through media. That is wrong.
But yes, sir. And my next question, sir, to you would be, what was your first experience in a courtroom? You could tell us about your experience in an Indian courtroom as well as in
In courtroom, I have no experience.
all right, sir. And
I've never appeared in India in arbitration. When people ask me, I said no, for a simple reason that there's a advocacy craft, and you must know the judge's style, you must know everything, and I have no experience that. But my first experience in the English courtroom was difficult because they were not used to Indian. First of all, the judges would not know how to pronounce my name. So it's, oh, Mr. Zaiwalla, something like that. I'm not used to it. Because before I started my firm, there were Indian and Pakistani law firm, but they were not in the city. They were in the suburbs doing immigration and crime. And although they were brown skinned, they had a white name. When you look at the firm's name, it would be an English name. But they would not be English, they would be Indians or Pakistani. So I decided I'm going to have my firm in my name, which was a great advantage for me also, because that's how I became a solicitor for the Indian High Commission. Because Syed Muhammad was the High Commissioner. He was, if you remember, you were too young, but he was Advocate General of Kerala. And he was Indira Gandhi's emergency time Minister for State for Law. And then when Mrs. Gandhi came back, he was appointed the High Commissioner. And he was a barrister, non-practicing. Okay. And he saw a young Parsi boy with an Indian name very close to the High Commission. He called me and appointed me. And that time it was very informal. He appointed me as an Indian government solicitor, High Commission solicitor. And that was a great break. And that would not have happened if I had an English name.
So how was it representing the Indian governments? I know you've been asked many times over and over again, but I'd like...
I tell you, Indian government had that time many shipping cases. The reason is that then there was a famine going on. And President Johnson had given a gift of free wheat and the PL 480 scheme. But India had to charter vessels to bring, at their cost, bring the cargo for wheat from India, from United States ports to Indian ports. And there were about 200, 300 ships a year, about maybe 150, 200. And they had a London arbitration. So there were always a dispute or late payment of demurrage damages. And India used to lose all the cases. Not because it did not have a case, but there was no person handling it properly. And it was being done from India. So the legal department of the High Commission to handle it. They had some other firm, Stockton and Company also. So when I took over, it was a great opportunity for me to handle it myself. And we turned around the cases. And in fact, the first case which India won in the House of Lords was through me. It was a ship called La Pintada, where the damages should be, compound interest should be paid. And believe it or not, for that case, Tony Blair had no work. So he was working in a labor law chamber, which is in India. In England, there's all the standard of high. Shipping is a high class, commercial banking is high class, labor immigration is low class. So he said, if there's any work, I would like to join with you. So he did the case. He did the case at La Pintada, and we disagreed. And the arbitrator remitted the award. The court remitted the award back. And the only times Tony Blair name appears in the law reports, English law reports, 1983, 1 Lloyd 39. He's instructed by Zaiwalla and Company for President of India.
That's very nice to hear.
Sir. And then I had sacked him. And in 2003, David Lepard of Sunday Times wanted to write a story. The bar knows about it. I sacked him. That had he performed well with my firm, and he would have remained at the bar. I wouldn't have sacked him. And he wouldn't have joined politics, and the world would have been saved the Iraq War. That's true.
Yes, sir. Yes,
Tony and I are still good friends, but this is a fact that he did work with us. He was a very good man.
So there's no animosity whatsoever.
Of course not. But this is one thing in England. If you're right, provided you are courteous, there is no animosity. You look straight in the eye, you can disagree. Even with the judge, you can disagree. He may not agree with you, but there will be no rudeness and there will be no animosity.
That's great, sir. And you have once in an interview stated that you had mediated the Kashmir dispute, and the then Prime Minister of Pakistan, Ms. Bhutto, and the then Prime Minister of India, Mr. Rajiv Gandhi, had almost come to a sort of a settlement, but it didn't go through. I mean, if you're, what was the experience of that, sir? I don't, I mean, want to probe you too much on this.
By reputation, people come to me from all over the world when they have difficult cases, especially when they're told that they will not succeed. And I met Benazir Bhutto in a very unusual circumstances. When I have a hobby. I read the book Autobiography of a Yogi by Paramahansa Yogananda, which is, I think, the most fascinating book I've ever read. And in this book, Paramahansa Yogananda talks about his experience of meeting spiritual masters. He would travel all over the world to meet spiritual masters, not as guru, but as friends. And this is what he says. So I do the same. And in Dubai, I was introduced to a person called a Baba. No, not a Shafi Baba, some Baba. And he produced a stone for me. And we got along very well. We just have a conversation of spirituality. And I got a phone call once. I was on the road from this person. They'd taken my phone. And he said, I want you to speak to a friend who knows you. I met Benazir Bhutto once at a lunch, but it was just nothing at all. But she knows me. And then he told me that I want you to come down to Dubai and take Benazir with you to London, because she was convicted by the Pakistani court for corruption. And he literally ordered her. I said, everything will pay, don't worry, I give you a guarantee. And I went to Dubai, and not the same night, but the next day, and she came with me. So I got to know her very well. And for 2 years, we acted for Benazir Bhutto. Clifford Chance on the other side because of property of her husbands and all the thing issues with this and things like that. And I remember I was in China because we were acting for the Chinese government at that time too. And I had a call at Benazir saying this, Sarosh, you have to close my file because Musharraf has sacked Nawaz Sharif. Musharraf has come into power. Nawaz Sharif is gone. So thank you. And she told me good news. She just said, Sarosh, she used to always joke with me because she had a great sense of humor. And she did tell me over lunch once that she told me two things which is of significance. One, she told me that Rajiv Gandhi and she had nearly settled the Kashmir dispute. I don't know what. She didn't tell me anything more. And the second thing she did tell me that nothing in Pakistan can be done without the stamp of the army approval.
Okay.
That's all. But otherwise we never talk politics. But in my book, I have mentioned this. Have you read my book?
Of course. That's where
Benazir was a very charming. When I have a painting and we launched a book, Zaiwalla collection of painting, and Benazir came for the launch at my office. But she was a lovely, lovely, very sensitive woman.
Yes.
Very spiritual and believed in the homeopathic medicine and very spiritual. The Baba was Qadri Baba in Dubai.
The Qadri Baba. All right, sir.
I have this hobby. I go to Parmat Ashram. I met Minuji. Whenever I hear of a Spain, I meet them. When I met Parmat Ashram, I went to Rishikesh at a private meeting. I said, I'm coming to you to meet as a friend, not as a guru. He laughed.
Sir, and again, going back to one of your interviews, you had said that the Chinese at one point in time trusted the Indians more than they trusted the Europeans.
Absolutely correct.
What went wrong, in your opinion, sir?
Nothing has gone wrong, but I think I'll tell you what has actually happened. This is in my book, because I was picked up by China when I was sacked by India from the Indian government work because of the Bofors case. When VP Singh came into power, Kuldeep Nair gave me a choice either to continue to act to Bachchans or to us, and I said no. Being a typical Parsi, I said, there's no conflict of interest. You can't order me who should do. So he very politely, he said, in that case, we were dismissed from 73 cases. The Chinese ambassador picked me up and sponsored my trip to China. And we were appointed to advise them on how to set up law firms in China for international work. And I found absolutely no discrimination. I was treated with great respect. And we did 4 major international arbitration cases in London for China. Now they have built it up. But the more important, because China had trust in me, I think integrity is most important for anyone. My relation to China are not so good now because of Dalai Lama, because
Yes,
I tried to facilitate a dialogue with Dalai Lama at the request of Dalai Lama, but with Chinese consent, Chinese government consent. China had actually, when John Major was the Prime Minister, it's public knowledge that I was quite close to the Prime Minister, and I had organized a dinner, the first dinner at 10 Downing Street for overseas businessmen, chaired by the Prime Minister in the cabinet room. So that became public. So the Chinese were having problems, and I used to travel in those days with the British government ministers. And there was a trip going with Richard Needham to China, and it was cancelled. So I asked the ambassador why it was cancelled. The ambassador told me that there was a problem with the British government side. So then he knew of my contact. He said, if you want, you can help and sort it out. So I arranged a back-channel dialogue between 10 Downing Street, John Major, through Lord Haskett and Lord Basil Feldman at my office. And the Chinese ambassador and somebody from Central Committee came, we sorted it out. Sometime later, few years later, the China approached me and he said, look, you have good relations with India. I said, yes, I have good relations with India. Why didn't you try and resolve the Chinese border dispute? And I was surprised they asked me. I said, of course I would do that. And the Chinese take things very seriously. So they brought all the evidence and all the thing. And they said, all we want is the border, which is the original border of Tibet. And I, in fact, told them that that can't be, because the McMahon line was drawn, by a colonel. But it was approved by in 1936, by the then government of Tibet, which was recognized. So therefore, that cannot be Tibet. But he said, let's talk. Everything is open. And he tried to show me with evidence that there was no minerals in Himalaya, we just want the border. I even asked him, what about Mansarovar and Kailash? Give me a passage. Because I want to go to Mansarovar and Kailash. That's one thing which I've been trying to go. I nearly went and I canceled. On advice of the High Commission, there is no help.
Yes, sir.
So I prepared, and we spent hours with the embassy, because the embassy takes it very seriously, to prepare a note for the foreign minister, a confidential note. And I gave it to Maneka Gandhi. She undertook to give it to Jaswant Singh. I don't know whether she gave it or not, because I was acting for Maneka Gandhi in those days in the libel case about the book on Indira Gandhi, which we succeeded. And we were waiting for a response. No response came. And I believe it would have been possible. This was 20 years ago, when the Chinese government was different.
Of course, yes, sir.
Different Chinese, and we could have started dialogue, because what the Chinese always in negotiation, they want something back. If you push them, they will say no. But you say, okay, there's a term called the face.
Yes, sir.
Settlement, there must be face. You must get something back. No one-way traffic.
Of course.
That's how it was a great experience for me. But I never came back. 6 months later, I met Jaswant Singh at an event. And I told him, he didn't know anything about the note. He said, I must have given it to the secretary. Nothing happened. It was a great opportunity we lost. And somebody must investigate. But they were so desperately keen to resolve it, because this must be late 90s or early 2000s.
Yes, sir.
When China was different, completely different from what it is now.
Less aggressive, in your opinion?
Wherever I went, they would say Indu, in a friendly way. Indu means India.
Of course. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And I mean, moving slightly away from all this, let's speak of the skills that are required for, being a successful lawyer. So for the young lawyers who are watching this live telecast, could you share with us how you read a brief, a new brief that comes to you, and how you narrow down on the points of law, and how you go about drafting the petitions, whatnot?
Very good question. I was lucky to be acting for the Indian High Commission at a time when India had foreign exchange crisis. So I could not instruct barristers or counsel, as they call it, because to instruct counsels fees, you have to get authority from the finance ministry, which would take months to come back. So consequently, with Syed Mama's help, he and I used to do things ourselves. So that's how we started. That was a great luck. Yes, so otherwise, you would just become a paper pusher. And this thing. But I had law as a hobby. And in London, I used to travel in a tube, because those days we couldn't afford taxis and cars. I used to travel we used to live in the suburbs in a small house. So I used to travel about 45 minutes, and I used to read every judgment in the weekly law reports and Lloyd's law reports, whether shipping or maritime or anything. But it gave me a complete, now when I look back for about 7 or 8 years traveling by tube every day, morning and evening, I got the knowledge of law, which is much beyond my normal experience. And this is where I started being innovative in law, because most people are specialists, do this, do that. And I do believe the secret of success, I think, is integrity and also belief in God. And I think that is very, very important. But honesty and pure, kind, and radiant heart, and doing your best. You don't work for the sake of earning fees. Of course, fees is good, but I find that when I get a big case, and if I think in this case I'm going to earn fees, it doesn't work. But if I do my best and honest integrity, and ultimately that shines. Be honest, integrity, and do your best for a client. Don't compromise on principles of integrity. And if you follow that, you develop an instinct. Now, for example, when the Bank Mellat of Iran, which is the biggest ever case in the English court of $4.6 billion,
yes, sir.
They lost in the High Court, Court of Appeal. They came to me. I didn't know the answer, but they said they'd heard of me. And I said, okay, we will succeed. I didn't know. But the thought comes by instincts. And you develop an instinctive feeling, and ideas come to you. And I call it divine. I don't know if it's true or not, but I call it divine. Similarly, and today we have got 85% success rate in the English court, the cases we have handled, the reported cases. Even the Venezuelan central bank case, they first went to a large firm for 9 months in Stephenson, Harvard. Nothing was done. In 1 year, we took it right up to the Supreme Court. When they came, I didn't have the answer. I said, leave it with me. But the answers come. So if you honestly work and sincerely work and have faith in I don't like the word God, I call it the universe. It's the same.
Of course, yes, sir.
It works. But honesty and integrity is the most important thing. And enjoy, have fun. Not to be, and I say spiritual, not to be sort of go to temple or church every time, but be honest, integrity, and do your best. And it'll work.
Of course, sir.
And of course, you have to have patience. There are going to be downturns also with the upturns.
So, so since you've just mentioned the word patience here, has the span of time that takes for a lawyer to succeed and make it, has it increased over the years in your opinion, or has it shrunk over the years, sir?
Depends on the individual, because the competition is now much more immense than it was when I started. Especially in England, one of the advantage I have was there was no other Indian lawyer, no other brown-skinned lawyer. There were 1 or 2 counsels, but they were practically non-entities. So therefore, I was also victimized very often. But you have to not to take it personally. You have to accept things as they are and accept reality. I accepted, for example, that Britain is the country of natives. United States is the country of immigrants. So they would obviously resist, and they would not like outsiders coming and taking over. But they have handled it so well. Like we have the same problem in India when the Nigerians and all in Delhi and all the thing. So I accepted that a certain amount of racism is tolerable, and handle it in a nice way and find a way to overcome it rather than complain.
Of course, sir. That's very well put, sir.
Yeah.
And here's a fun question to you, sir. You've made it very clear that you need to understand the courts to appear, but if you're constrained to appear, let's say in the Supreme Court of India, would you do it?
Possibly not.
Okay, sir.
I would not do it because I wouldn't know the court style, so I would not be doing justice to my client. I would rather take a local lawyer. I've had arbitrations in India, but I instructed, for example, I had some time ago, I had an arbitration, I instructed Gopal Subramaniam, I was there. But because they know the feel of the arbitrator. In an argument, you don't know the feel of the judge, how he's reacting, what he will like, what he will not like. So, and what he will respect. That's also important to know.
That's true, sir. And there is a lot of dialogue and discussion on surrounding the mental health issue among the lawyers these days, mostly the younger ones. what is your take on that, sir? I mean, especially after the pandemic, it seems to have.
Yeah. Even I think everybody, including I, felt during the pandemic, because you're so active and suddenly you have to stay at home and work from home is not easy. It's a complete change of style. But I think with prayers, and I think prayers and meditation is the most important thing, and being positive about things and making every bad opportunity something to learn from and how to overcome it. And of course, if need be, take assistance from experts or help mental health experts to help it. But mental health, I think the most important is meditation. And I think transcendental meditation is very important to TM. TM is very good.
Yes, sir. And yes, sir. And over the years in England, so how much did you miss India? And when you decided you were not going to come back, and how difficult was the decision?
I never decided I'm not going to come back.
You've still not decided, sir?
I've still not decided not to come back. India is my home, and I'm very clear about it. When I go to Bombay, I still wear my chappals. I still go for a walk at Chapati, and I still eat Sing Chana at Flora Fountain. And I think it's fun. So India will always be my home, and I would always love India, especially the city where I was born.
Bombay, that is.
Bombay.
Yes, sir.
And I still, if I have to travel by bus, I know the bus routes to go from my home is 123 to Taj, Cecil Restaurant to Taj. I know the bus routes. I can travel in Bombay without a problem.
But you, yes, sir. Sorry, sir. Sorry to. I mean, you were saying something.
And I just, as if I'm a Bombayite. It doesn't. So when you grow up and you spend your first 20 years in a city, it remains with you for life.
Agreed, sir. Yeah.
Or you may sometimes disagree with what is going on, but that's fair. But you will always remain in your heart, the country. I still watch NDTV, and just out of curiosity, if nothing else. I talk and other things. Sometimes it gets boring, but so what?
So going back to your college days, you said you have said that you started the Union Canteen at GLC, and it was a lot of fun. What was the process? Could you tell us?
I was very proactive in my student days. Very proactive. I wanted to change the whole system, and that's what I've always tried to do. Even in England, I have to do, but in a practical way, not to destroy it, but evolve it. In my student days, one of the great experiences I had was working with an Indian tour company in the holidays. There was in those days in Bombay a Parsi tour company, very popular only amongst Parsis and Gujaratis, called H.K. Lala and Company. And they used to organize in the summer vacation, Christmas vacation tours. And I used to go as a helper. Helper means you are really serving as waiters and lifting and other things. But it was the most fascinating experience I had. I toured India. I went to Kashmir so many times by third class coach travel, and then from bus from Pathankot to Srinagar and Pahalgam and Gulmarg, and go to South India and go by also from Bangalore to the bus all over South India. And then I became a tour conductor by the time I was 16 or 17. It was a great experience of knowing India and touring India and knowing India as it is. And I think it's one of the most fascinating experience. And today, if anything, I would like to travel is once again travel by Delhi Janata Express by third class, sleeper coach to Delhi from Mumbai. I don't know whether I'll be able to do it, but I've done so many times. And you meet so many people, you talk, we are young people with different ideas, and I wouldn't miss that for anything.
But the experience has probably changed after so many years.
The experience which I had on the Lala stores allowed me to how to deal with people in difficult circumstances. Because I used to take, as a tour guide, about 50 or 60 Parsi families, individuals. And when they are the worst and the best without any guards, and you have to learn how to handle them. And that enabled me to handle a situation even in England when they were difficult. They were difficult situations for an outsider to start. But there are ways to handle it, not to get upset. Find a solution. Not a compromise, but find a collaboration way, and teach them how we can collaborate to build a better Britain.
Yes,
that's what I have tried to do. So even in I've traveled with the minister, I said, no compromise. We want collaboration.
Yes, sir. So now you have you follow Baha'i faith.
Yes, I do follow Baha'i faith. I'm
Yes,
still a Parsi because you don't have to convert from Parsi.
of course. Yeah.
Because the Baha'i faith believes in all the prophets, starting from Moses, Krishna, Buddha, all the prophets. And the most important thing which I like about Baha'i faith is one world, one mankind. It says all religion, all prophets are equal. And the most important thing is equality of mankind means equality of men and women. And the other factor which I like is about the other principle which I like is no church, no mosque, no temples. You pray directly to God. And the other important thing which I like, no priest. Priests of any type are prohibited. And the other thing which I like about the Baha'i faith is no coming together for prayers. Because when you come together for prayers, you think I'm the best. You pray directly between the God, which is exactly what Vedanta says. And every night when I'm in my country house at the weekend, I have Vedanta next to me and I read 2 pages. And Vedanta says the same thing, that God is universal and God is within us. Baha'u'llah says, the founder of the Baha'i faith, he has known God who has known himself. So you don't have to go to church, temple, or say, my religion is the best. The best religion is righteousness. And if you see the Zoroastrian faith, the most important prayer, Ashembo, it says, in righteousness lies real happiness, for it is God's finest gift. Happy is he who is righteous for righteousness' sake. And all the religion, if you see, talks about being right with your fellow citizens. It is only later on when it becomes politicized and then all this religion is corrupted. So if you read the Gita, it's the same thing. If you read, I am a great believer in Vedanta, and I read Parthasarthi Vedanta for many years, 2 pages every night at the weekend, and next to my bed. And it teaches me that, we are all one world, one mankind. And this is what we want now. We are fighting wars and all these differences for what? They're just going to pass through life, going to take nothing against us. Many powerful people have gone and forgotten. So why not enjoy and let others enjoy life in a clean way? So the most important is righteousness. Do the right thing. If you do the right and honest thing, you may be wrong, you may make mistakes, but you're protected. I do believe in that. I do firmly believe in that.
And so thank you for this. And this is my final question to you.
I've never given an interview like this before. My interviews have been so different, but you asked me so many personal things. Where are you based, Tyagarajan?
So I am based out of Bangalore, sir. I'm a native of this town called Coimbatore in Tamil Nadu, but
I know I've been to Coimbatore.
Oh, that's nice to hear, sir.
I've been to Coimbatore, and I used to take the Lala's tours to Bangalore, from Bangalore. Kerala tour used to start from Bangalore to Mysore to all these places. And a few years ago, I spent a week in the Coimbatore Ayurveda College.
Oh, yes, sir. Yeah.
For my bad ankles. I know Coimbatore well.
You are still welcome to Coimbatore, sir, anytime.
I've been a couple of times to Coimbatore. I know India very well. I've traveled all over India as a youngster. Okay, yes. Pleasure to talk to you. Thank you for inviting me.
The pleasure is mine, sir. Thank you, sir.
I wish all your listeners, I wish the best, and have an honest part, be honest, integrity, everything will take care of itself.
Thank you, sir. Thanks a lot, sir.
Bye-bye and God bless.
Thank you, sir. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to you, sir.
Merry Christmas and Happy New Year.
Thank you, sir.